Good afternoon, Reynoldsburg, and welcome to our new series, District Lowdown with Dr. Brown. I'm Dr. Brown, your Reynoldsburg City School Superintendent, and excited to be with you today. We're coming to you live from Hannah Ashton Middle School, where we get to talk a little bit about facilities and give you some insight into some of the things that are coming up in some of our departments. Each week on this particular show, we're going to have a guest from our staff or from the community to talk about the lowdown and some of the unique important parts of our school district. In the last 5 minutes of each of these episodes, you'll have an opportunity to keep from your live audience to add questions and provide any ideas that you might want us to consider. And we'll be airing these every other Tuesday. Our next episode, if you're not watching this live, our next episode will be Tuesday, May 25th, and we'll be one more time bringing you the lowdown. So now let's get started. First of all, I'm excited to have with us today Mr. Chris Reed, who is our school district's Executive Director of Business, and he oversees, among a whole lot of other things, our buildings and our facilities. Welcome so much, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Chris, if you wouldn't mind, talk to us a little bit about what are some of the things that your departments cover. You have a wide, vast group of things that you're overseeing. Can you talk a little bit about those very briefly?
Sure. Just to run it down, I oversee the food service for the district, the technology for the district, the safety and security, the buildings and grounds that you mentioned, and transportation. And honestly, a lot of time is spent, I also review all the contracts for the district, so a lot of reading, but good stuff. So
I think in any school district, most people would assume that the instructional program is a centerpiece of what takes place, and usually that is the case. But so much of what we try to do on the instructional side can't be done without the other side of the house. Talk to us about why the work in your departments is so important to the futures of our students and to what our schools do.
Sure. So, you know, we're known as support services simply because we are here to support the students and the teachers and the community of this district. Whether that's, you know, that's, like I said, going down the departments, that's getting kids to and from school safely. That's them being safe in school and comfortable buildings, feeding them good food and providing them with technology they need. All those things support the teaching of the students. And that is our number one goal, is to always support our customers, internal and external.
So much of what we've had to deal with in this past year has been focused on COVID and how we respond to that. So many things in your department have responded directly to that issue. Tell us a little bit more about what takes place or what has taken place going all the way back to last spring.
Sure. So one of the biggest challenges that we had as a school district with COVID was the procurement of what we all know now as PPE. It was a mad rush to bring it in, and once we had it, to train our staff on how to use it properly. And that wasn't just our staff, that was also the certified staff, the teachers, the secretaries, the principals. Everyone in the building needed to have this equipment and supplies. And I think the staff as a whole did a fantastic job, because last I checked, I think from a student standpoint, we're still at just below 1% positivity for the district, which is significantly lower than the county. So that's a huge kudos to not only the staff that reports to me, but also the staff that reports on the other side of the district. It's been an absolute team effort. We just support the team. In this case, to win.
Very good. So not only from that standpoint, in terms of responding to COVID that way, we responded with providing food to our community. We provided with technology in the homes of students, so they were able to access curriculum. Can you talk a little bit about what daunting tasks had to be taking place in order to make those things happen?
Sure. So kind of in order of what you mentioned, obviously supplying food to the community was paramount. And our food service director did a fantastic job of coordinating that. And that's been something that's been ongoing. And quite frankly, we haven't really had many hiccups with that. We've been able to supply food pretty much nonstop since March, whatever that was of last year.
13.
Yeah, March 13th of last year. But from a technology standpoint, you know, we had to order a lot of Chromebooks. We brought in some additional support to make sure that everyone has working Chromebooks. One of the things that I think is very interesting for us as a district, two things. One is that we installed some very high-powered external kind of not hot spots, but access points. So anyone within about 200 to 300 yards of our buildings can get on our network if they're a student, and not a slow network, a very fast network. So that was very crucial. The other part is we brought in some Hugly cameras so that those students that were at home, whether that was during our full virtual or during our hybrid, we wanted to give them the best in classroom experience as possible. Mm-hmm. And that was with high quality cameras, great sound, and the best technology that we could get. So we were able to accomplish that. And that's going back to teamwork. That's all the way from you as my boss saying, okay, to our treasurer, utilizing grants and things like that to pull these resources into the district for our kids.
And just to share, we know that closing the digital divide in our country is crucial to making sure all families and all kids have access to the internet, to broadband connectivity. That's something we're looking forward to continuing to go into the future, past this school year, into the next school year, and potentially into the future, because we want to do our part to contribute to closing that digital divide. As we go into the 21-22 school year in just a few months, what are some of the things from your perspective that we would need to tackle in terms of obstacles?
Well, I think some of the same obstacles we're going to see. And quite frankly, some of the things that we've been doing, we probably should have been doing anyways. You know, there are school districts throughout the state and throughout the country who have to close down because of the flu. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's just a building, but I think it's kind of changed the look of how we handle not necessarily cleanliness, but how we just day-to-day activities, from making sure we're washing our hands appropriately, mm-hmm. Making sure we're doing all the things appropriately, covering our mouths and those types of things when we cough. Those are things that I think are very important. But moving forward, again, from a support standpoint, is we're always waiting to hear what's coming from the county from a health standpoint, because we don't make decisions on our own. So being able to maneuver probably very quickly to whatever changes that they give us, that's our job, is to make sure we maneuver and support the district, whatever their guidance or direction might be. So we don't know what that's going to be. We've got some guesses, so we can make some good estimates. But there's a lot of positivity moving forward.
Thank you.
So
there's some concern out there about air circulation in buildings and what that looks like. I know we're in a really good position, but not everyone understands and knows that. Could you share with us what that is, why we're successful in making that a successful venture, essentially?
Sure. Ironically, shortly after you and I started here, we did a large HVAC project. Mm-hmm. Every building in the entire district got renovations. And that ended halfway through 2019. So the timing was actually pretty good, that we have incredibly smart systems where we can do a whole lot of things with our HVAC systems, whether that's clean air flushes, some people call them clean air dumps, to making sure that everything follows ASHRAE standards, which is just the national standard for HVAC systems and filters, and making sure they're changed. And I think, you know, the end result of that is proven by what I mentioned earlier with the less than 1% positivity rate amongst our students. Is we are delivering clean air to classrooms. One of the things that we were able to do in a couple occasions is, if we knew that there was a positive COVID case in a room, whether it's a classroom or an art room, we could negatively charge that room with very little effort. And what that means is, if a door is opened, air only comes in, it doesn't go out. So we were able to capture any possible issues inside of the classroom.
Great. So if anybody's thinking about recycled air, that's not a real thing for us.
No.
We're not recycling air on a regular basis. They're getting fresh air on a regular basis.
Yes.
So
yes.
we're really proud of that accomplishment.
Very proud, yes.
As we approach the beginning of the school year, we all know that we have some growth issues and some facility issues that we're going to need to tackle. Can you talk a little bit about what those are, how we could attack those, how the community can help us make that happen?
Sure. One of the biggest issues that we have from a capacity standpoint is in our elementary schools. So one of the things that we've looked at, and the board has looked at and kind of given us the approval to move forward with, is looking into a capital or a building project And what that building project would give us is a lot, but it'd give us an additional elementary school. It also take care of some of our concerns at the middle level, some of our building concerns, the building we're in. But it moves us, it gets us ready for the future. And that's really important for my position, again, is to support the schools, but by supporting the schools, we're supporting the community of Reynoldsburg. What Reynoldsburg needs, we hear you, and we've got a plan that I think is a very positive plan for the next 20, 30 years.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes.
Valerie, are we at the point we want to take questions yet?
Yes, we had a question from Donna asking if we will be 5 days a week next year.
Great question, Donna. We sent out some communication, I believe it was either last week or week before. As of today, our plan would be just that, 5 days a week, looking as normal as we possibly can, whatever that looks like at that point. But that is what we're planning for and looking forward to. We'll be in a position where we'll have a number of people vaccinated, the adults and many of the kids may be vaccinated by then. So we hope to be in a really good position to be able to do a 5 day a week regular type school environment.
Can you also talk, last Friday we sent out a message about overcrowding and space. Can you guys both talk about that a little?
Sure. You want to lead that off?
Yeah, I guess I don't know how much detail you'd like me to get into, but essentially what we're looking at doing from a kind of a master plan standpoint, this is something that you've gone over in the state of the schools.
Right.
This is part of the online PowerPoint presentation, is we are looking at building an early learning center, which would be for pre-K and kindergarten. We're looking at building an additional middle school. And what that will allow us to do from an elementary standpoint is convert one of our current middle schools into an elementary school. So that would then give us obviously an additional elementary school, a larger middle school, and it also pull kindergarten out of our elementary schools and put them in a specific space for preschool and kindergarten. Because what we find is that age group loses a lot of education time just by moving in between classrooms and outside and lunchrooms and things like that. So kind of shrink their space and give them their own specific space so that they're more ready for when first grade comes.
Absolutely. I think it's important to note that also gives us an opportunity for universal full day kindergarten. So all of our kids will get an opportunity for a full day program, which we think from an instructional standpoint is crucial to their development, but also from a community service standpoint to allow parents to have the opportunity a year earlier to have full-time employment and not necessarily have to pay for daycare when kids are going off to daycare situations. So there's a lot coming up.
Jay is asking, how will kids be getting the best education, because that is most important? What's the plan for getting back to normal in the classrooms for education?
Well, I would probably say in the classrooms right now, we're as close to normal as we could possibly be right now, considering the conditions. Kids are still wearing masks. We still practice social distancing and things of that nature. But our classroom environments are really, really similar to what they typically look like. I think as we come back in the fall, we'll look for all of our kids to potentially come back from virtual and those who are still at home and be in classrooms. So we have to prepare for that type of capacity. But our teachers, and from an instructional standpoint, our teachers have done an amazing job and will continue to do so going forward. So we're excited about what that could look like going forward. This has been a really frustrating year on many fronts, and I have to issue lots of grace and apology in terms of what it's looked like and the changes and iterations. But as everyone knows, this thing has been making us change on a regular basis because data and information is constantly changing. So I think even now, I think we're doing instruction really well. I think getting back to what we're typically used to on a 5 day basis will get us even more so where we need to be.
Donna thinks the educational center is a wonderful idea. So we're obviously broadcasting from Hannah Ashton. Can you guys talk about the significance of this building, where it fits kind of not only in our history but also in our future?
Sure. I'll start. Hannah Ashton's 153 years old, and this place is an institution in terms of what some of the original building conveys, but also what experiences have taken place in this building over the course of many, many decades. Whatever we do going into the future, we want to continue to celebrate that and have that be part of who we are from a cultural standpoint. And so the relevance of this building is something we want to hold on to in some ways, while still being able to provide the optimal educational experience and environment for kids, and doing it in a cost-effective situation. You may want to talk a little more specifically about what that could look like.
Sure. So in regards to this building as is, very old building like you had mentioned, the amount of money it would take for us to get it to its most premier kind of condition is about 18 million, and that number is growing because of inflation, a lot of other things. But the thing to note about that is that doesn't take care of some of the structural issues that will always be in this building. Like on the third floor, we don't have a girls' restroom, so they have to walk down to the second floor. Because of the age of the building, in some cases, we are grandfathered from an ADA standpoint. This building, yes, is a very historical building. And when I met with the Historical Society that's actually right across the street, we talked about some of the words that people would use to describe this building. And what we found is those words are not what we would use to describe Hannah J. Ashton as a person.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that we talked about is the fact that what you see now as a building is not the original. Now, that's not to say it's not historical, but there is the possibility to recreate a building and not necessarily make it look exactly like the original, but give it something that pays homage to the original building, but also pays homage to Hannah J. Ashton as a person.
Yeah.
And I think that would go a long way for the community. That's something that the Historical Society is behind. And I'm very, very proud and very glad to be working with them on that. But this building is just in one of those situations because of its age that, I've said this before and I'll say it again, if we don't either spend millions of dollars to fix it, we either need to vacate the building or she's going to vacate us. So we either have to be proactive or reactive. In my line of work, I like to be proactive.
Absolutely. I think from any potential construction standpoint, there are elements of the building that we can mimic in a new building, but there are also pieces of this building that we can retain and replace and put into a brand new building. So there are a lot of options we could possibly explore to make sure we pay deference to the legacy that this particular school has had, and definitely pay homage to Hannah J. Ashton and what she provided to this community.
Jay said thank you for answering his question, and thank you to teachers and people who are putting education and children first.
Thank you.
Malaysia is asking, I saw the video of Mr. Reed talking about some of the interior and exterior structural damage to hams. Do current conditions of that put students and staff at a higher risk of illness or injury compared to the other buildings in our district?
That is a great question. The answer is no. Going back to the HVAC renovation, this building actually got the most work from an HVAC standpoint. So for anyone in the community that can remember the building prior to 2017, there wasn't any HVAC on the outside of the building. Now when you look, there is. So we're actually moving air in and out of the building in very, very new ducts and all of those things. From a structural standpoint, no, we are fully, we're given occupancy from the state, from the county every year without any issue. It's just that the problem is with a building this old, the fixes cost more and sometimes come up a lot more frequent than with newer buildings.
And considering some of the deterioration of some of the facade, and
we would have to replace at least 60% of the brick, exterior brick, and the roof. We would need to replace everything, and that is a huge task, a huge undertaking that we could, that's something that we are looking at. But I think there's a much better way to service the community than dump that kind of money into a building that's this old.
And that still doesn't necessarily get you to the optimal educational experience for kids due to some of the limitations from an ADA standpoint and from a structural standpoint.
And not that it's my side of the district, but the district does a lot with project-based learning.
Mm-hmm.
And a building like this isn't really that indicative or that suiting for project-based learning. It's very classroom, hallway type thing here.
And I know we're talking a lot, and we're from Hannah Ashton, but other buildings in our district need attention as well.
Absolutely.
So even though, there might be somebody in elementary school watching this thinking, oh, well, what about French Run if you're going to make these improvements to Hannah Ashton? So we do have a plan to address all the district as a whole.
Absolutely. It's similar to the treasurer having a 5-year forecast. I have a 5-year plan that is constantly being changed and constantly being updated. So, we're nearing the end of the school year. That's when my maintenance and grounds department gets very busy. That's when we're doing roof repairs and doing facade repairs and doing paving. That's when we get a lot of our work done, when there's not people in the building. Thankfully this year and last year we didn't have really anything emergency that needed to be done because we have been very proactive with the district as a whole.
Last question is from Courtney. I have heard that Livingston High School is very full as it stands, and now preschool is moving there. Where are the preschoolers going, and will they have an area to play outside, or will they not get outside at all?
Great question. Preschool will move into part of this section that is now occupied by Columbus State. We'll be taking some of that space back specifically for preschool. And yes, they will have some opportunity on the outside to do the play that they need to have. And I'll say, I want to emphasize the word need, not want. They need to have that play space.
Absolutely.
Great. That was our last question.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much for sharing your insight with us. Always a pleasure to talk about the things we're trying to get done. We're excited about what's going to be coming down the road as far as what our district is concerned and things we're working on. Excited for a relatively normal 21-22 school year. I can't wait for that. I want to thank you again for joining us. Appreciate what you've brought to us and to our district. It's our goal always to prepare our students to impact the now and innovate the future. And it's hopefully clear that we are working on those things on a regular basis. The next time we meet on District Lowdown, we'll be talking with our treasurer, Tammy Miller, who will be talking about our district finances. So she gets really, really excited about our 5-year forecast and sharing things about that with you so you can understand what that whole projection looks like. So mark your calendars for March 25th at noon. And you can always, if you're unable to catch it then, you can always catch, May 25th. I'm going back in time, which I don't want to do. You can always catch us on the replay, so make sure you're able to tune in and get an idea of some of the things we're working on. Stay up to date with us on the website and all of our social media outlets, and we want to thank you so much for joining us today. Have a good one.